So, you're an aspiring educator. You probably already know that teaching is this incredible mix of art and science. Well, today we're diving deep into the science, the absolute core principles of teaching aptitude that are going to transform your classroom and, yeah, help you crush your professional exams. Let's get right into it.
This quote from Dr. Kalam just hits the nail on the head, doesn't it? Great teaching is so much more than just, downloading information into students' brains. It's about sparking curiosity, building character, and inspiring them. And to pull that off, you really need a solid framework.
So, here's our game plan. We're going to walk through this journey just like you would if you were designing an amazing lesson. We'll start with the who, then move to the how, and the what. And finally, we'll tackle that all-important question. Okay, but did it actually work? All right, first things first. It all begins with the single most fundamental question. Who are you teaching? Seriously, the answer to this is going to shape every single decision you make from here on out. And this brings us to two huge concepts you've got to know: pedagogy and andragogy. First up is pedagogy. This is probably what you picture when you think of school. It's that classic model where the teacher is the sage on the stage, you know? They're the expert at the front of the room, holding all the knowledge, and the students are basically there to absorb it all. Now let's just flip that whole idea on its head. That's andragogy, and it's all about teaching adults. And here, the dynamic completely changes. Adults come in with their own life experiences, they're self-motivated, and they want to be in control of their learning. So the teacher's role, it shifts from that sage on the stage to more of a guide on the side. And you can see how this plays out in the real world, right? Think of a high school history class. That's classic pedagogy. The teacher dictates the curriculum, and the students are motivated by, well, grades. Now compare that to a professional development workshop for adults. That's pure andragogy. People are there because they want to be, and they're using their own work experiences to learn. It is a totally different ballgame. Okay, so once you've figured out who you're teaching, the next big question is how you're going to structure the lesson. Because let's be real, not all learning is created equal. You've got to decide what level of thinking you're aiming for. And that brings us to the 3 levels of teaching. A really great way to think about this is like you're climbing a ladder. It's pretty simple. You can't just teleport to the top rung. You have to start at the bottom. So we'll begin with the most basic level, which is memory. And then we're going to climb all the way up to the top, the reflective level. So that first ring on the ladder is the memory level. This is all about straight up rote memorization. Just think of a first grader drilling their multiplication tables over and over. It's a simple stimulus response thing designed to help students just hold on to facts and be able to spit them back out. Moving up a step, we get to the understanding level. The key phrase here is memory plus insight. It's not enough to just know the date 1776. A student at this level gets why that date matters. They can explain the context, the causes, the effects. They're showing real mastery of the idea, not just the fact. And at the very top of the ladder, we have the reflective level. Now, this is where the real magic happens. This is where you stop giving students answers and start giving them problems. It's about challenging them to use their own creativity and reasoning to find a solution. So instead of just following a lab worksheet, they'd have to design their own experiment to solve a real problem. Okay, so we know our learner and we've picked the right rung on the ladder for our lesson. Now we need to get super specific. What exactly do we want our students to be able to do when we're done? To nail down those clear, measurable goals, we have to talk about an absolute cornerstone of education, Bloom's taxonomy. Now you might be thinking, hey, wait, isn't this the same as the ladder? It's a good question, but not quite. The ladder of learning is about the general level of your teaching. Bloom's taxonomy gets way more specific. It gives us the actual verbs, the actions, we want to see climbing from basic thinking skills like remembering all the way up to the most complex, like creating something totally new. Let's make this super concrete. Remembering is just defining a word. Understanding is being able to use that word correctly in your own sentence. Applying is taking a math formula you learned and using it to solve a brand new problem. Analyzing is looking at 2 different historical accounts and figuring out the differences. Evaluating is making a judgment like critiquing a piece of art. And at the very peak, creating is something like writing your own original short story. You see how each level builds right on top of the last one? And that brings us to the final, and maybe the most important piece of this entire puzzle. You can plan the most brilliant, engaging lesson in the world, but how do you actually know if anyone learned anything? That's where evaluation comes in. I mean, this is the question that keeps good teachers up at night, right? And the answer is not just a single big test at the end of the semester. Real effective evaluation is an ongoing process, and it really comes in two main flavors: formative and summative. Okay, this is such a critical distinction to get. Formative evaluation happens during the learning process. It's all about getting feedback and making corrections on the fly. Summative evaluation happens at the end of a unit to measure the final result. Here's the easiest way to think of it. One's for improvement, the other's for judgment. Formative assessment is basically the check-in. It's like a coach giving pointers to the team during practice. When you ask a question in the middle of a lesson or give a quick low-stakes quiz, you're not really trying to slap a grade on it. You're trying to figure out where the confusion is so you can fix it, right then and there. Summative assessment, on the other hand, is the final score. It's the big championship game after all the practice is over and done with. Your final project, that big term paper, the end of your exam, that's all summative. It's designed to measure the ultimate outcome. And listen, you need both, but they serve totally different purposes. So when you take a step back, you realize that all of these pieces, knowing your learner, structuring your lessons, setting sharp objectives, and checking your work, they're all leading to one single ultimate goal: becoming a reflective teacher. And this quote just says it all. It's not enough to just know all the theories. You have to constantly be looking at your own teaching and asking, why did I do it that way, and did it actually work? It's this continuous loop. You plan, you teach, you see what happened, and then you adjust for next time. And that's not just some nice-to-have idea. That is the engine of professional growth that separates a good teacher from a truly great one.
And that leaves us with one final thought. Look, mastering all these theories is going to help you pass your exam, for sure. But becoming a great educator, that's a lifelong journey. The real question isn't just, do you know this stuff? It's how will you use these tools to build a habit of constant self-improvement? Because that's the true mark of a professional.